Japanese products are widely recognized for their exceptional quality and sturdy construction. However, immediately after World War II, many of today's esteemed Japanese tag manufacturers were still in their infancy. While the motorcycle industry was gradually expanding due to its affordability and cost-effectiveness, Japanese brands like Honda, Yamaha, and Suzuki had to venture beyond their domestic market to sustain growth. In the 1950s, these brands were unfamiliar in Europe and America, prompting them to engage in racing as a means to gain global recognition. This was racing unlike anything the world had witnessed before, and it remains unparalleled even to this day. Soichiro Honda held a strong disdain for two-stroke engines, which led the company to focus primarily on four-stroke engines. Initially, Honda decided to compete in the 125cc class, a relatively low-profile competition that served as a reasonable starting point. The inaugural Grand Prix bike, the RC141, was introduced in 1959, featuring a two-valve twin-cylinder engine. Soon after, it was upgraded to a four-valve unit housed within the RC142 model. For the 1960 season, Honda completely re-engineered the motorcycle. The new machine retained the four-valve engine but incorporated a forward tilt of 35 degrees as opposed to the previous 6 degrees to enhance air cooling. It also adapted a shaft-driven valve train and a 4K in carburetors. The open cradle frame was reinforced and the front trailing arms were replaced with a superior telescopic fork. Generating 22 horsepower at 14,000 rpm, the engine propelled the RC133 throughout the entire season, marking Honda's first significant triumph. In surprising departure for the following year, 1961, Honda adopted a markedly different approach by introducing an undersquared engine in the form of the RC144. The intention behind this decision was to enhance mid-range torque while also expecting a positive impact on peak power. Unfortunately, the outcome was contrary to the expectations, and Honda was compelled to revert back to the two RC143, an updated version of the RC143. Despite the change, the engine remained the same, and it triumphed in the 1961 125cc championship, emerging victorious in 8 out of 11 races. The trend of success continued in 1962 when Honda secured yet another world championship with the RC145. However, their winning streak was interrupted in 1963 by the Suzuki RT63, a twin-cylinder machine boasting 8 gears, which surpassed Honda with a substantial lead in scores. This setback ignited the consideration of introducing additional cylinders to match the ever-improving two-stroke competition. Once again in 1964, Honda reclaimed the competition title with the RC146, a four-cylinder motorcycle. It was during this time that Ernst Degner, who had defected from East Germany, played a pivotal role in assisting Suzuki by sharing and basically stealing MZ's expertise in expansion chamber technology for two-stroke engines. As the 1965 season unfolded, it became evident that Suzuki was poised to secure another championship. Despite the efforts of Honda and their improved 30 horsepower 4RC146, the bike was struggling to keep up with Suzuki, primarily due to issues with carburetors and ignition. During this era of motorcycle racing, the regulations set by the FIM were relatively loose, with the main limitation being the displacement restriction. With minimum constraints in place, Honda seized the opportunity to push the boundaries and embarked on a remarkable endeavor, the Honda RC148. Their engineers conceived a revolutionary and unprecedented solution, an inline 5-cylinder engine that allowed for even higher RPM and a significantly greater potential for horsepower. This was no ordinary 5-cylinder. While a typical 5-cylinder engine has evenly spaced firings at every 144 degrees, Honda's creation adopted a unique approach. Essentially, it featured a 120-degree pin crankshaft akin to a conventional 6-cylinder engine, except without the 6th crankpin. Consequently, engine fired every 120 degrees, and after the 5th firing, there was a pause of 240 degrees before the next firing, resulting in a distinctive throaty sound. The air-cooled engine featured tiny cylinders measuring 33 by 29.2 mm, resulting in a capacity of just 25 cc each. Despite its compact size, the engine produced an impressive 34 horsepower at an astonishingly high engine speed of 20,000 rpm. However, this power output proved insufficient when pitted against the formidable two-stroke competition, and Luigi Taveri, the Swiss rider representing Honda, ended the season in 5th place without securing any victories. Honda engineers wasted no time and immediately commenced work on an updated version of the engine, meant for the RC149, incorporating even more over-square design inspired by the sun dimensions of the newer 50cc GP bike, the Honda RC116. Soichiro Irimajiri was entrusted with the engine's development, resulting in an air-cooled unit with substantial fins extending to the wet oil pan, along with the addition of 2 external oil coolers. This all-magnesium engine utilized 5 Keihin carburetors, a 5x5 exhaust system, and featured a compression ratio of 12:1. Notably, all of Honda's GP bikes from this era employed a pressed-in multi-piece crankshaft to facilitate the use of single-piece conrods and bearings. The valve train located between cylinders 3 and 4 consisted of a set of spur gears driving twin overhead camshafts and a 4-valve configuration. The valve angle, measuring 56 degrees, was considerably narrow compared to the older bikes with angles of 70 degrees or more, resulting in a combustion chamber shape reminiscent of a hemispherical design. The valves themselves were exceptionally small and delicate, prone to bending with minimal force, requiring meticulous assembly using tweezers. The ability to achieve such high RPM limits was aided by several factors, including the reduction of internal weight and the bore-to-stroke ratio of the cylinders. For comparison, the 4-cylinder RC146 featured a similar bore of 35mm, incorporated incredibly diminutive internal components. The fully assembled piston weighed a mere 45 grams, while an intake valve, with a diameter of 14.5mm and a length of 74.4mm, weighed only 9 grams. The redesigned engine introduced cylinders of different shapes, measuring 35.5 by 25.14mm, resulting in a significant increase in power to 38 horsepower at 20,500 rpm, an impressive 12% jump. Furthermore, this revised engine could rev slightly higher. The 5-cylinder engine boasted an extraordinary rev limit of 23,000 rpm, but it would stall if allowed to drop below 17,000 rpm. Thanks to its low internal inertia, the engine would not idle without throttle input. Peak torque was achieved at 19,300 rpm, generating about 12 Nm of torque. The total weight of the motorcycle was a mere 85 kilograms. Power was transmitted through an 8-speed gearbox, which was carried over from the RC148 model. The narrow power band necessitated the use of multiple gears. Additionally, thanks to the combination of power and lightweight design, these bikes were capable of easily reaching a top speed of 130 miles per hour. Despite strong competition from Suzuki and Yamaha, Honda riders Luigi Taveri and Ralph Bryans achieved remarkable success, with Taveri securing first place and Bryans finishing third. This victory marked Honda's 4th title and Tavares' 3rd individual achievement. However, the 1966 season proved to be the final one for Honda in the 125cc motorcycle racing, as the FIM made the decision to implement a twin-cylinder and a 4-cylinder limit for the 50cc and 125cc classes. Consequently, many intriguing engine configurations that were in development, such as Honda's planned 4-stroke 3-cylinder engine for the 50cc class, never came to fruition. Honda withdrew from motorcycle racing in 1967, but resurfaced much later in 1979 with the introduction of the oval piston NR500. The era of motorcycle Grand Prix during this time was truly remarkable, characterized by an extraordinary amount of effort, dedication, and engineering prowess devoted to the development of these marvelous engines.